Good morning, and welcome once again to the First Presbyterian Churches of Highland and Marlborough. Today is Sunday, May the 17th, 2020. Once again, our sheltering at home order has been extended. It looks like we're being asked by Governor Cuomo to stay in place through June the 13th. So we're glad that you have joined us here online for yet another Sunday together. Our sermon title is Wet Paint, and it is based on Psalm 66, verses 8 through 20. Wet paint. When you see a sign on a wall that says wet paint, do you touch the wall? Some people do. The sign makes the temptation irresistible. In fact, the sign creates the temptation. If you're walking down the corridor of an office building, it is doubtful that you would reach out and touch the wall. The wall is not on your radar, and you probably would not notice the texture or the color of the wall. There is no reason to pause and consider the wall unless there is a sign on it that reads wet paint. And some people react by thinking, oh, I have to be careful not to bump into the wall. My clothes will get paint on them. I'll smudge the finish. I have to avoid that wet paint. And then there are other people who will react by internally asking the question, is it? Is it still wet? Is that sign necessary? That wall sure looks dry to me. Some people will reach out and touch that wall, maybe with just an index finger, giving the wall a little jab, maybe with the first 3 fingers because that would resolve the mystery. Wet paint? Nope, it's dry now. That sign can come down. Or, go figure, that is wet paint. And now I have paint on my hand. Wet paint signs are little tests of our personalities. And some folks will walk right past a sign without giving it another thought. Some will avoid an area that was recently painted. And some will touch the fresh coat of paint to see if it is as reported, wet paint. We have tests in our lives, little tests and big tests. They are moments when we discover something about ourselves and our beliefs. Some are of little consequence, and others remain a part of us forever. In the Bible, significant religious figures were put to the test. An opportunity to demonstrate their faith was made possible because of their period of testing. Other people could surmise that person was special. An ordeal did not defeat her. His faith in God was unwavering. Biblical characters who endured their test with their faith intact were respected. Shiphrah and Puah, Job and Jesus, all passed their tests. Jesus was in the wilderness when he considered turning stones to bread rather than trusting God to provide sustenance. But Jesus did not turn those stones to bread. He let the hunger gnaw at him, and he placed his faith in God. Jesus emerged from the wilderness with his faith strengthened, and the length of his ordeal was 40 days and 40 nights. The word quarantine is derived from the Italian words quaranta giorni, which means 40. When communities isolated persons out of fear of spreading diseases, the period of time was set at 40 days based on the biblical stories that used that number to indicate a lengthy period of time. We have exceeded 40 days in what has been for us like a quarantine. Shelter-in-place orders are testing us. We are having to dig deep to keep our sanity our joy, our faith, our hope. We are not the first who have been tested, and we will not be the last. The author of Psalm 66 spoke of a time of trial for the community. For you, O God, have tested us. You have tried us as silver is tried. You brought us into the net. You laid burdens on our backs. You let people ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, yet you have brought us out to a spacious place. The community about which the psalmist was speaking, the community as a whole, was tested. The people lost their freedom to move when and where they wished, like fish caught in a net. Like oxen or donkeys, they carried weighty burdens. Like trampled souls, they felt downtrodden. Like metals purged of impurities, the people felt as if they had gone through fire and water. The people about whom the psalmist writes had gone through a difficult time of trial, and then they experienced the redemption of God. The Lord brought them out to a spacious place. There was no more confinement. There were no more burdens. The people were purified. They now experienced the fullness of God's glory. The people became who God desired them to be. God brought them through their test and preserved their souls. Just as God delivered the people in ancient Israel, God will deliver us. We will come out of the places where we shelter as a refined people, as our better selves. We may find it difficult to believe that we finally will arrive at a different place, a spacious place, a place of God's providence. That is our test, to keep the faith, to believe that God has in store for us a new day. As we continue to have our faith tested, we will have our own experiences of what ancient Israel had when they were described as being brought into the net, having burdens placed on our backs, with people riding over our heads, and being purified with fire and water. Quarantine for us produces its own set of stress. We may have difficulty sleeping or have unusual dreams when we do. We may lose our train of thought when speaking. Anxiety and depression may greet us in the dawn, accompany us throughout the day, or keep us awake at night. Drinking to excess may become a problem. The absence of touch exacerbates despair. And children have had to cope with being out of school and away from their friends for 2 months, and that soon will be 3. There are those who have to deal with never being alone, while others always are alone. There are angry outbursts that people wish could be erased and hope are forgiven. To endure the sheltering in place, secular talking heads have encouraged us to have a routine, to keep a schedule that provides order and a sense of control to counter the chaos of the time when most things feel out of our control. If able, we are encouraged to go outside every day, to get out of one's residence, and to breathe the fresh air of Ulster County. For people of faith, solace may be found in Ecclesiastes 3. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. Admittedly, this is the time to refrain from embracing. In addition to the 3rd chapter of Ecclesiastes, Matthew's gospel may be of comfort. It is in the 6th chapter of Matthew where we read that Jesus says, "Do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? And can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your span of life? Do not worry, saying, 'What will we eat?' or 'What will we drink?' or 'What will we wear?' Indeed, your heavenly parent knows that you need all these things, but strive first for the realm of God and God's righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." Friends, have faith. God will bring us through this time of trial. We may find it hard to believe that our quarantine of sorts will ever end, but it will. God wants more for our lives than struggle and fear. God knows we are being tried, and God is confident that we will pass the test. With God's help, we will. The God who created us is the God who sustains us. God will bring us out to a spacious place. Amen.